I'd argue the core character of the Avatar franchise is Pandora itself. It's not about the RDA or Jake Sully or how many fingers you have. Ubisoft clearly understands this, almost to a fault. The Pandora world is absolutely incredible, from the dense glow of the forest at night to the open plains of the Dire Horse lands to the mysterious clouded forest. The world is rich with detail, plants and animals, things to collect and discover and craft, and despite a satisfying combat and progression loop, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora misses the mark from a story perspective in the most Avatar way possible. Let me know any of your questions that you have about the game and I'll get back to you in the comments down below. Let's start with graphics and performance. I played Avatar on PC on my RTX 4090 and I was able to hit a pretty consistent frame rate, about 60 FPS at 4K with DLS on quality and every setting on ultra. Avatar does support ray tracing, but it's inside the normal settings options for like lighting and everything, and it also supports AMD FSR 3 as well as AMD frame gen, but not NVIDIA frame gen, which is an odd choice, but I assume that's because it's AMD sponsored. I didn't see that as an issue though, as I barely dropped below 60 frames during my entire time. There was one point when I did in the upper planes in a couple of spots, but across the board, like, my performance was really good, and your mileage may vary, you know, depending on your system. And I also tested it on my ROG Ally and was hitting about 30-40 frames with a few dips here and there with everything on low and AMD frame gen on. Regardless of your settings though, god damn, this is a good looking game. Like, Ubisoft had done some absolute wizardry with the level of detail and density in these locations. The starting region, the Kingla Forest, showcases a lot of what the game can do visually, from the stunning wide vistas during the day and the glowing plants and animals during the night. I love Avatar's oversaturated look in the films, and that's all present here, and except you can explore and interact with everything. So like, it's just looks incredible. It's so fun just like running around the world, and you know, the game is almost worth playing just for the looks, right? If you've got like a good monitor or TV, it's hands down the best looking game that Ubisoft has ever made. And one of my favorite moments in the game is those quiet moments where you're simply just like running through these really awesome locations and just like listening to the slow build of the music. And Avatar has like a charge jump and a double jump mechanic, so you're like parkouring through Pandora with this like Avatar music and these beautiful visuals. Oh, it's so good. Combat, both mounted and on the ground, is also really solid, with 3 different bow types that all feel unique and have their uses, as well as the staff sling that you can use for like stealth scenarios. There's also special arrows that can apply status effects, which are very useful in the harder encounters, and the RDA weapons are just kind of like okay. It's a little strange that there's no aim down sights. Like, I couldn't find a skill for it, which seems like a missed opportunity, and in most cases you'll do more damage to the RDA with your bows than with the RDA weapons. They just have a better feel to them as well, so I often just leaned on the 3 different bow types rather than the RDA weapons. Fighting both the RDA and the animals and creatures you find in the world is quite enjoyable, as there is a pretty detailed combat system here, with every creature you fight having specific weak spots where you do extra damage, as well as armored points where you do less. And this is all shown in the Hunter's Guide that you can bring up to see like a detailed view of the creature, how it looks, where its weak points and armored points are, and any information that you need about it. It's really deep, and the combat loop itself like all feels really good. What I was a little like perplexed by, I guess, is that there's no boss fights really. Like, you've got this really deep combat system where you've got weak points and armored points and all that sort of stuff that you can like knock off parts of the amps and everything, but there's no actual like massive amps that you're going to fight that are like super unique, or even like creatures that have like really unique mechanics in that way. It just feels odd, considering this is the same developer, like Massive Entertainment, that made the Division series, which does have some interesting like boss fights and scenarios, and most of the like hard encounters in this game really just revolve around a bunch of amps just charging at you, which feels, I don't know, like, I feel like there could have been a little bit more to that and create these massive, you know, bigger amps, even like multi-people amps or something that have like these massive bits you got to like knock off, or even animals that just like have boss encounters that you got to like deal with or something. I just feel like there should have been a little bit more, like they could have pushed that little bit further forward rather than just having that same flow of fighting RDA or animals throughout the whole time. And most of those RDA encounters happen around the bases and drill sites that they have set up, and they suck the resources out of Pandora. This is also reflected in the state of these areas. I love how when you get into these polluted areas, you can see like the color gets sapped from the world, which just is such a really cool detail about, you know, Pandora being that character and visually showing what they're doing to the world. This is pretty typical Ubisoft open world stuff, right? Like clearing out these sites and that sort of a thing, but there isn't heaps of these, so you can avoid them if you choose. What I didn't like though is that a fair chunk of the main missions will actually just have you clear out these RDA bases for whatever reason, which does get a bit repetitive as they all sort of boil down to sabotaging a drill or a generator, and you know, it's either like pulling a lever, shooting it, or you hacking it in some way. And oh, speaking of the hacking tool, it's the worst part of this game, right? Luckily in the settings you can turn it so that this is auto completed, so you don't have to do this mini game, but I highly recommend you do that, right? So essentially what you have to do here is you have to hold the right trigger in a specific point to then trigger the hacking on top of that, and then you're gonna do this little maze puzzle, which ranges from like super easy to like annoyingly complex. And this mini game is way overused. I kind of understand it's like a pacing mechanic to break up like the combat and everything, but this game already has a pacing mechanic being the world itself and the exploration, so I don't totally get why it's here, and it just kind of bothered me. Like about halfway through the game, I was just so over these hacking mini games that I just turned on the autocomplete and everything was fine. And they were just, I don't know why there's so many of these when it just doesn't feel connected to the world. It just feels like unnecessary fluff. Not all quests are like that though. Like some of them will have you do some investigations to find out where people went or whatever, and you'll use your your Navi sensors to investigate these locations and follow scents and find certain people or animals or creatures, whatever. And I really enjoyed those quests and trying to piece together what was happening with these people. And, you know, returning to the fact again that Pandora itself is just incredible, right? The world has multiple biomes that contain different wildlife and plants for you to harvest and explore, and not only use in crafting and cooking, but also some quests will require you to go and find like a particular material of a certain quality and bringing up the hunter's guide and being like, all right, I've got to go over here and into this biome and try and find this. And because the world is just so well put together from the sound and everything, it's just fun to me to go and try and find these materials. There is a couple of these side quests that will require you to go and do this, right? To find particular materials, like hand them in either for clan favor or what have you. But it's odd that these are only in side quests and they're pretty sparse in general, so it feels a little disappointing that, you know, most of the main quests are just hoorah, kill the RDA, they're bad, when you've got this incredible world surrounding it with all of this interesting life to it that you aren't pushing the player enough into that direction unless they purposely go and seek it out by doing those side quests and engaging in those systems. If you just did the main story here, I think you'd have a very different opinion on the quality of this game, because Pandora is the best content in this game.
Thank you for these gifts.
So how the crafting system essentially works is you will be able to harvest any material that you find throughout the world, as well as defeating creatures, and you have to harvest it in a particular way to make it pristine, to increase its value, as well as harvest it under certain conditions to increase that value even more. The same goes for animals, and killing them clean as well as merciful will increase the value of the harvested materials you get from them. You can then use those materials into crafting to create new gear and weapons for yourself, which have stats and passives and will increase your overall combat strength, which you'll then use, you know, as you progress through the game. You'll need higher combat strength to take on those harder encounters. You've also can invest in the cooking system, which is quite deep. Like the cooking materials will give different passive buffs, and you can combine them to create certain recipes and then use them in combat to give you benefits, as well as out of combat to increase benefits there as well. Really enjoyed all of this system, and just like hunting through the world, using the hunter's guide to try and find different creatures and materials and hunting for them, like either on my Ekron or dire horse, and just sort of exploring. It's the best part of the game to me. But there is more to see and do out there other than just like this crafting. Like the exploration here is really strong. Like when you're close to something, you'll get like a little purple glow on your HUD that you can like go and investigate whatever that is. And it could be some sort of thing that'll give you like a cosmetic or a side quest or some other thing over there. But it can also help you with your progression, as you have that combat strength, which is increased by gaining new weapons and armor and improving overall there, but also by unlocking new skills and increasing your health. You can increase your health via the bell sprigs that you'll find out the world, as well as get skill points from the Tarasu flowers that you'll find, like either the saplings or the big flowers. And finding these is exciting, right? Because, you know, you're progressing your character just by exploring the world, which I really liked. You can gain these skill points as well by completing quests, but the fun of finding them was something I really enjoyed engaging with. And you're sort of incentivized to engage with that exploration because it helps you progress, and it's just like good overall. The skill system here as well is actually quite deep. You've got 5 different skill trees, and if you unlock every skill in that tree, there is like an apex skill on top of that you'll have to complete a certain challenge to unlock, which will then further your development in that specific line. So each skill tree focuses on like a specific part of your kit. You've also got ancestor skills on top of that, which you'll find throughout the world, which will give you additional mechanics and bonuses to your overall kit. Like, for example, the first one you get is just like that double jump, but you can get different skills that say will allow you to like rip an RDA soldier out of their amp suit, which is just like a ton of fun. And I really enjoyed how deep this progression system was. It felt meaningful to actually invest in these skills as well as the combat strength and trying to get the new gear. And on top of that, that's why I would like these harder challenges, right? Like these boss fights and interesting encounters to use all of these tools that I've gained. So everything so far, I've been pretty positive, but it's as soon as people start talking that things start to go downhill.
We'll relearn all the Sarentu ways.
And yet the Sarentu we once knew did not defy Ewa with scraps from the sky people.
It's all I know. They stole us when we were children.
They have stolen many things.
So you play as an unnamed Na'vi and get to go through a little bit of character creation. You can unlock new cosmetics and like character creation stuff as you progress through the game, which you can then go and completely change your character again, so don't worry too much about your early decisions. Now, the main character here has 3 different voice choices, and all of them are bad. Like, I don't want to disparage anyone's work or anything like that, but I just did not connect with any of these 3 voice actors, like portrayal of the main character.
You helped me before, I'll help.
You helped me before.
You helped me before, I'll help you now.
2 of them I found just to be straight up bad and annoying to listen to. The third one is like pretty generic and just like passable, I guess. That like I switched to that one, was like, okay, like I guess I'll deal with that. Luckily, this is a thing that you can change in the character creator later as well. But ultimately, you as the player are captured at a young age by the RDA and then raised by them, and then you escape through various means. And then you're sort of stuck between the 2 worlds of being a Na'vi, but also having the RDA sort of growth like in experiences and how that reflects. This doesn't really seem to go anywhere. Like, you know, there's a couple of people that come with you, like you've got some friends and characters you meet along the way. The clans themselves, like the 3 clans you meet, are all fantastic and diverse and interesting to engage with, but you as the main character don't really develop in any specific way that feels meaningful. Neither do your companions or anything. Like, it just doesn't go anywhere, which is a bit sad, I think. Like, the world of Avatar is so incredible, and I personally, just as like a complete side tangent, I think the movie struggle from this as well is that there's just nothing interesting about the RDA and like the Na'vi in general. Like, RDA bad, Na'vi good. I hope the 3rd movie changes this, right? But like, Pandora is the main reason that I watch those movies, and Pandora is the main reason that I play this game, right? That's like, but there's just so much there that they could have done. Like, it's clear that Massive Entertainment are huge fans of Avatar. There's so much detail in the world and the Hunter's Guide, as well as like you've got a song chord that develops as you progress through the story, and then you can go to the character screen and read all about their bios, and there's notes and audio logs and all this interesting lore and stuff that they could really do something with, but it never evolves in a really effective or meaningful way. It just sort of sits along to the sidelines to sort of push you through this narrative and push you through the world, but I really wish it went somewhere, and it just doesn't seem to necessarily go anywhere other than the typical, the good guys win and a very typical twist throughout. But it's definitely not the main reason why I would play this game if you're looking to engage in a really interesting story. It's passable, but it's nothing special, and I was quite let down by the main character, the voice acting there, and overall just the story and where it goes. It's not all bad though. Like, the side quests are often have these really interesting side stories and some interesting characters that you sort of meet as you pass through the world, but there's just not enough of those to really make it worthwhile. Bug wise, I had 1 hard crash and a couple of like times where the loading, like the screen that, you know, when you go to a loading screen, there's like a screen, right? The screen didn't appear, so I just like watched the game load in. But other than that, like, extremely smooth bug-free experience, had nothing game breaking or anything at all, really. Just one hard crash, those couple of like little visual things when the game was loading in, and that's honestly it. And most of this was before the day one patch as well. Overall though, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora is a really good game, and absolutely a game that I would recommend you play. Like, the world itself is an incredible character, and it's well worth engaging in and exploring, especially if you like that sort of systems. There's obviously a ton of Far Cry comparisons out there, but you know, just because it's an open world made by Ubisoft, I think that's selling Avatar Frontiers of Pandora short. Ubisoft are doing some really unique things here that I've only really seen done in like a Horizon series, right? From the creatures and the way they have these weak spots and armored parts and being able to harvest them for your crafting, whether that be for your weapons or armor, etc. There's a lot of depth and progression that can be done throughout the world with the crafting systems. It's quite unique for an Ubisoft game, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I would definitely recommend playing Avatar Frontiers of Pandora just to experience the world and explore. Like, you'll absolutely get lost in the world for sure, and that is worth the price of admission in my eyes. But I will have plenty of Avatar content coming out on the channel, so make sure you like and subscribe and do all that stuff. Let me know any questions you have in the comments down below. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is NorZZa, and I hope you have a great day.